Next, let's work on the screen and the speakers a little bit. If we look at the concept art, and I'll hide this so we can get a better picture of it, we can see that our top view schematic is a little bit different than the perspective view concept over here on the right. In the schematic, the speakers are about the same height as the screen, and we have this line that goes around all of them. But over here in the perspective view, the speakers are a little bit smaller, and that line isn't there. So we can just pick whichever one we want to go with. In this case, I want to go with the one that's in perspective view. So we have to make a slight change to what we've already done. I'll go ahead and unhide the game device here, and it's just labeled cube, and we should probably rename that. So I'll double click it and rename it console. Okay, then let's hit tab to go into edit mode here. And first, let's just resize this screen area. I'll hit Z and go to X-ray view so I can see right through it. And I don't really want all of the things on the bottom to be cluttering this up. So I'll hit 1 to go to vertex select mode, select all those bottom vertices, and hit H to hide. Then hit 7 to go to top view again. Then I'll select this whole screen area, and then just hit S to scale it down. I'll make it just a little bit bigger than the screen that we see in the schematic. Now I could scale this up along the Y, but that's going to mess up the bevels that are going around, because the thickness of the top will be a little bit different than the thickness on the sides, and I don't want that. So instead, I'll just select the top and move it up. And then take the bottom and move it down. That way I can retain the thickness all the way around. I didn't want to move this left and right though, because if we did that, then it might not be the same on the other side, and I'd like this to be perfectly symmetrical. But now that we have the screen in the right place, let's go ahead and make the speakers. The speakers have a lot of little details that would be easier to make with modifiers, so I'm going to start out with a separate object and then bring this in later. So let's hit tab to go into object mode here, hit Shift A, add mesh and plane, and then I'll hit tab to go into edit mode, move it off to the side, and I'm moving it in edit mode so that the origin stays right at the middle there. And then I'll scale this up. Then I'll take the top two vertices, bring it up to the top, and bring the bottom down to the bottom. The reason I wanted to leave the origin right in the middle is that now we can mirror this over to the other side. First though, I'll bring it up and above the game console, just like so, and then we can go to add modifier and mirror. There we go. Now whatever we do to one side will also happen to the other side. And as a reminder, it's mirroring around the object origin. Okay, now we'll go ahead and bevel those vertices. So I'll hit Ctrl B to bevel, and then V to turn on vertex only, and scroll up on my mouse wheel 3 times or so. So I have 4 segments and a shape of about 0.5. Then to make our lives a little bit easier, I'm going to inset this before we make any of the dots. I'll hit I to inset and bring that in just a little bit. Having this loop that goes all the way around is going to make our lives a little bit easier when we join this back in with the main console object. So now to make that cut that goes all the way around, what I can do here is just inset one more time, and I'll do this very, very lightly. Bring this down, and then hit E to extrude, and bring this straight back up. I can even hold Control to enable snapping, since we're still on vertex snapping, and hover my mouse over one of these top vertices and snap it right to them. Now if we go to solid view and turn off X-ray mode, we can see that we have a nice cut all the way around. I already know that I want to bevel this area, and I want to add the same bevel modifier that we have on the other object, so that when we join it back in, we don't have to change any of the settings. So I'll copy the modifier over to the other object. First I'll select the speaker, then I'll shift and select the console, and then in the bevel modifier for the console, use the drop-down arrow, and choose copy to selected. There we go. Now I can add bevel weights to this object as well. I'll pull this up and above the mirror modifier so it applies to both sides, hit tab to go into edit mode, and for this top face, just increase the mean bevel weight. There we go. Not too much, but just a little bit. Then I'll go to edge select mode, loop select that outer ring, and increase the bevel weight there too. Now we've got a nice panel crease. Next, let's make those circles. Though to do that, we need to delete this top face here to actually punch the holes straight through it, so maybe that bevel was a little bit premature. So I'll go ahead and hit delete and faces, and we can add that back in later. But for now, we just need to add some circles. We can roughly follow along what we have in the schematic, but since our size is a little bit different, since we're kind of going off this a little bit more, we don't have to follow it exactly. But we do know that we have a row of 3 here at the top, and it goes to 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, and then ends on another row of 3. Anything that's repeating like that is usually a bit easier to add with an array modifier, so let's do that with yet another object. I'll hit Tab to go to Object Mode, and I'll start naming these even though we'll join them back into the main console later. That'll just keep things clear as we work. So I'll select our plane object and rename that speaker. Then I'll go to Top View again, hit Shift-A, Mesh and Circle, and we really don't need that many vertices because this is going to be pretty small. So I'll set this down to 8. We could probably get away with 6, but 8 will make it nice and crisp. So I'll bring this up and make it roughly the size of one of these circles here. And then I'll just make this top pattern that we can repeat all the way down. I'll hit Tab to go into Edit Mode, 1 to go to Vertex Select Mode, hit Shift-D and X to duplicate this along the X-axis, and this one I want to make sure is right in the middle of the speaker. Now I don't really know exactly where the middle of the speaker is, so I'll go into that object in Edit Mode, add a temporary edge loop, and that way I can very easily line this up in Wireframe view. And it actually looks like I got it right on the first time, so that's kind of nice. Then I'll hit Shift-D, X, and duplicate this one more time, just like that, and then I'll take these two, Shift-D, and duplicate them down. Alright, then I can use the Array modifier to create repeating instances of this all the way down. But first I'll drag it up, and I'll hold Control just to snap it up to the top of the device, add modifier, and Array. We can see we don't want to repeat it on the X-axis, so I'll set the factor X in the relative offset to 0, and instead change the Y. We'll probably have to eyeball this a little bit, but if we drag it in the negative direction, we can see that that's the right direction. I'm not really following the schematic too much at this point, so let's just go ahead and increase the count until we get all the way to the bottom, and it looks like it doesn't quite fit. So what I'll do is I'll adjust the Y factor until that very last row sits just right. There we go. And then we can go ahead and delete those other two. So in order to make this actual geometry, because right now we still only have these vertices to work with, what I'll do is apply this. But we have to think before we apply anything, is there anything else that we should do now that would make our lives easier so that we don't have to do it for each of these individually later on? And I think that would be extruding and connecting these together. So let's hit Tab to go into Edit Mode before we worry about deleting these bottom two. And let's just select each one individually, hit F to fill. Maybe a lasso select might be a little bit better here, but I'm just so used to using box select. Grab that last vertex. Okay. So now these are filled in, and I'm going to go to, let's see, solid view so I can see that a little bit better, and maybe even X-ray. And now let's start connecting these together since we know we need to do that anyway. So I'll just take some faces here at the top, hit F to make a face. Those at the bottom. There we go, and I guess we can connect these up here as well. And then we can take this whole inside area and make yet another face. Again, since this is a flat surface, I'm not really going to worry about it being an n-gon. Then to make the actual holes, I can go to Face Select Mode, select all of these faces, hit I to inset them just a little bit, and pull this down along the Z-axis, ever so slightly. Let's see what that looks like in solid view and without X-ray. And I think that works pretty well, but I might like them to be a little bit smaller. Now if I select all of the insides and hit S to scale, it'll scale them all towards their centers, and I really don't want to do all of these individually. So instead, I'll go to my pivot point, and switch this from median point to individual origins, then hit S and scale these down individually, just like so, and then switch back to median point. Then I might pull these down a little bit more, and I think we can call it good there. So now let's apply our array and clean this up a little bit. So I'll go to the drop-down arrow and click Apply. Then hit Tab to go into Edit Mode, and we need to delete these bottom two circles. So I'll go to Vertex Select Mode, select those vertices, and let's go into X-ray view just to make sure that we got them all. Delete, and vertices. Then since we're going to attach this to the original speaker, we know that we need to connect these together somehow, because we know we can't have shapes inside of other shapes without those connections. So first, I'll just go through and select all the vertices in the middle here, F to make a face. And I'll do that down here too. But this time I'll just hold Control and right click and drag. Do a lasso selection. Maybe that'll be easier. Just like so. F to fill. Whoops, not that one. Okay, there we go. F to fill. And just do that a couple more times. Then down here, I'll fill these bottom areas. I'll just fill those in with quads, and this might be a little bit easier in edge select mode. And one extra tip, by the way, if you have a hole like this and it's going to be filled in with a quad, then you can just tap F and it'll automatically fill it in for you. So that's a pretty fast way to do things. For example, if I really wanted to fill this area in, and this could nicely make a quad, I could just select this edge and hit F. But I'll hit Control Z and undo that, as we can just fill this in with one big n-gon later. Then I'll hit Tab to go into object mode. And now we can join this in with our speaker mesh and connect it. So to join two objects together, just select one, Shift select the other. There we go. I don't think it matters too much which one is selected, though we do want the bevel modifier. So let's actually make sure that the speaker is the second one selected. And it keeps selecting the console for whatever reason, so let me go toggle off X-ray. That way I can select it better. Okay, select the dots, Shift select the speaker, there we go. Then we can go to Object and Join, or use the hotkey Control J. Alright, now those dots are part of the speaker object, and we can hit Tab to go into edit mode here. And I believe they should already be lined up with the sides, since we already snapped it earlier. So really all we need to do is just connect some of the bottom here. And connect to the top. And here's the edge loop that we used for reference before, but we don't really need that anymore, so I'll hit delete and edge loops. And let's make sure we actually grab the right edge there. Alright, F to fill. And then we should be able to just loop select all the way around and hit F. Same thing here. That's now one big loop, F to fill, and there we go. So we've got some big n-gons that we're working with. But again, in this case, it's not really causing us any problems. The modeler in me really wants to go through and make this all nice quads, but that's a topic for another day. For now, we just want to get the shapes that we need, and if it works, then it works. Now let's go ahead and combine the speaker back to the main console object. So I'll hit Tab to go into object mode here, and before we do this, let's position our speakers a little bit better. Because right now they're right up next to the screen, which looks pretty good, but I think they're a little bit too far to the left. So I'll hit Tab to go into edit mode here and just move this and give everything a little bit more breathing room there. And in the concept, they're a bit smaller than the screen, so I might even scale these down just a little bit. I'm keeping my eye on the left version here just to see what this looks like in object mode. And we can probably pull this out just a little bit more and maybe even increase the size of the screen. Everybody always likes a bigger screen. There we go. And now let's go into the console object, tab into edit mode there, and we can take our screen here and just scale it up a bit, just like so. And if we need to make it shorter, then we can grab the top, bring it down just slightly, and grab the bottom and bring it up a bit. Okay, now we're going to have to delete some of our faces here in order to create a little hole that we can place these speakers in, but I really don't want to go through and reconnect all of these areas that we laboriously selected earlier. So instead, just to make things a little bit faster, I'll use my knife tool to make a temporary cut from the corner of the screen to the side of the device, and hit enter. I'll do the same thing over here as well. Okay. Make that cut, and hit enter. Now I can hit 3 to go to face select mode. Take both of these faces, and actually let's make a better cut up here as well. I'll hit K. Go to a side of the device, hit enter. And I think I got it right on an existing vertex. There we go. Now I can take these two faces, hit delete, and faces. Alright, now to bring these speakers back in, I'll hit Tab to go to object mode. And first let's make sure that they're snapped right to the right height. So let's go to side view here. Let's go to wireframe view. And for now, let's turn off the bevel modifier just so we can see this a little bit better. I'll turn it off for the game device object as well. So now we can see exactly what height this needs to go at. So I'll hit G and Z, hold Control, and it's snapping the wrong one. So it's snapping the bottom instead of the top because I guess the bottom is closer. So first I'll bring it down a little bit, and then hit G, Z, and then snap, and then it'll snap the top to it. There we go. And it looks like something in here isn't flat. Let's find out what that is. Looks like it's these vertices here that go all the way around. Somehow they must have been pushed down a little bit. So let's fix that first. I'll use my Control hotkey. Since this isn't quite a loop, I'll just go up and around. And then from side view, to make sure that it's completely flat, I'll hit S, Z, and 0, and then snap that up to one of the other vertices. And there we go. Now it's completely flat. Alright, now we can join our speaker in with our object, but as soon as we join this, we're going to lose the mirror modifier because this object doesn't have a mirror modifier. So we need to apply that first. Let's go to the drop down and click apply. Then we can select the speaker and then shift select the console, again making the console the active object because that's the one we want to join to, and then hit Control J. Then let's hit tab to go into edit mode and connect these back together. I'll just select 4 vertices there and hit F to fill. Same thing over here. I'll just take the corners, hit F to fill. Okay, now to fill this all in, if I try to loop select this whole area, it's going to also select this face here because we have both vertices on either side of that quad. So I need to be in edge select mode. So I'll go to 2 to go to edge select mode, and then select the whole loop, and then hit F to fill. Same thing over here. Select that loop, and hit F to fill. Then I'll bring the rest of my mesh back by hitting Alt-H. Alright, and then we can get rid of these extra supporting edges that we don't actually need anymore. So I'll select that one, hit delete and dissolve edges. And let's make sure that dissolve vertices is still on, because we did have a vertex that looks like the knife tool missed again over there. So if I hit delete and dissolve edges, well, that's enabled, then we won't have that random extra vertex over there or hanging out on the side. Same thing here. Let's take that one and that one and that one. Actually, this one up here was there before. But let's take those extra edges, delete and dissolve edges, and there we go. So now if we go to object mode, we have those speakers placed nicely next to the screen. The last thing to do is that final bevel, or actually I think we got the bevel before, I just had turned the modifier off. There we go. Let's inspect it one more time just to see if there's any other details that we need to bevel. The holes themselves are already kind of a bevel, so I don't think we need to do anything there. And let's make sure it's the same on this side, and it is. So once you have that, then head over to the next video. We're getting really close to finishing the modeling.